guys, it's me, Aisha again, and today I have another video for you. Like I stated in the last video, it just seemed kind of weird with everything that's going on to just come back and be like, ooh, makeup. So I decided to incorporate some history into... I thought you were going outside. And like I stated in my last video, I want to switch things up and do something a little different and incorporate some sort of history or interesting facts into my makeup videos because it felt kind of weird to come back and just pretend like nothing is going on when everything is going on right now. So yeah, I wanted to switch it up, and yeah. And today I am actually going to be talking a little bit about sundown towns. Now this came up because actually one of my friends brought it up, and I remember I heard about them a long time ago. Like, she brought up the word sundown towns, or the phrase sundown towns, and I remember like in the back of my head I knew what it was, but I could not put my finger on it. And then once I started reading about it, I was like, oh yeah, I've heard about that, but I never like really like did a deep dive into them or what they were or anything like that. So that's what I did for this video. I researched it for about a week, and today I'm doing a video for you about it. So yeah, let's get started. And of course I'm going to list all the makeup and stuff I used in the description box below. Okay, so I guess let's start off with the obvious question first. What are sundown towns? And sundown towns are all white communities, towns, cities that exclude completely African Americans, sometimes Jewish Americans, Asian Americans, but namely just minorities in general, but especially African Americans, from their towns. And by exclude, I mean like they basically kept them out or kicked them out or something to that effect, did something horrible to them, basically had signs up telling them they had to leave before the sun went down, or they would be lynched or beaten or etc. You can use your imagination for that. Typically there were signs posted at the city limits for these places that said, usually it said, inward, do not let the sun go down on you, don't let the sun go down on you, in, and then it had the town name at the end. And this was like a very typical poster that was posted at city limits for whatever place this was, for whatever town, city, or whatever it was. I'm also using a new foundation today, so hopefully it goes well. That's red. And basically this was a practice of racial segregation, of course. Of course. This is so red. And with this, they use a combination of discriminatory laws, violence, and intimidation, of course, to enforce the rules of these towns. But yeah, like I said in the beginning, I brought this up because a few friends of mine were actually talking about this on Facebook. And they live in Texas, and they were saying how there's still a ton of them there. So I thought, no way, that doesn't even make any sense. No way. Well, I hoped. I was like, they're probably right. They're probably right. So that's what prompted me to actually do the research and find out. Because at first I was like, no, there's no way that could be true. Like, not in 2020. But I did my research and I found out they were absolutely right. It is absolutely true. They're a little more discreet now, of course. Usually the signs aren't up anymore, but they still exist. And there have been many, many books written about it, actually. These towns are also called, they can be called sundowner towns, sunset towns, or gray towns. And they are called this because usually there is It comes from posting where it says that colored people, they covered all bases with that one, colored people, non-white people, had to leave town by sundown or else. And the or else was typically like a lynching or beating or something like that. Or something more creative, I guess. And I know a lot of people would think that it was just the southern American states, but no, it was the North. The North was actually worse than the South before the 1960s when it came to sundown towns. Yeah, at least until the 1960s, the northern states were just as bad, if not worse, than the southern states when it came to this. And I, for one, thought this was very, very strange because in the winter, obviously the sun sets very early. So, that would mean they wouldn't have much time to do anything they needed to do, work or anything. Then they would have to get home or get indoors before they were attacked. It's kind of crazy. Well, the whole thing is crazy, honestly. And I brought this up too because I guess my friends were talking about it because sundown towns were mentioned in the new HBO show Lovecraft Country. Yeah, Lovecraft Country. I haven't seen it yet. It's on my watch list, actually. On my to watch list. And I haven't seen it yet because I'm waiting to watch it. But in the first episode, apparently there are 3 characters. They're all African American. They're traveling across country. And they stop on the side of the road just to take a break. And this is in the 1950s. They stop on the side of the road to take a break. Yeah, they stop on the side of the road in Alabama to take a break, just to take a rest. And they are approached by the sheriff of the town that they're in. And he just approaches them. He's like, hey, do you guys know what sundown towns are? And they informed him that they do indeed know what they are. I forget where they were traveling from. I don't know. Like I said, I haven't seen the show yet, so I just read like a summary of what happened just in the beginning because I didn't want to spoil it. But anyway, they're approached by him, and he asked them if they knew what sundown towns were, and they told him yes, they know what they are. And he told them that if they weren't out of his town by sundown, that he was obligated to lynch them. So, obviously the characters then proceeded to head on their way. But the entire time they were driving and trying to leave, the sheriff was following them the whole time, like waiting for the sun to go down so he could lynch them, basically. So yeah, I'm glad that that was included in the show and it prompted people to start talking about this because, like I said, I've heard about it a long time ago. But yeah, like I said, I heard about this a long time ago and I kind of just forgot about it because I didn't do any further research. I was a kid when I heard about it, honestly. I forget how I heard about it. But yeah, I was a kid when I first heard about this, so I didn't do much research into it, and I kind of forgot about it, so I'm glad that that was included in the show, and it started a conversation, and more people are talking about it now, and hopefully more people are informed about them, because they have not gone away. They are still alive and well, and like I said, there are many books written about this, and in some of the books, there are lists of places where this still exists, and like I said, they're a little more subtle now, but they're still a thing. They're still a thing. So I told you about a fictional encounter of something that happened. I'm going to tell you about some real, actual encounters that have happened that I've found in That's my dog. Let me tell you about some actual encounters that have happened that I found. And a little bit of a backstory. So basically they got their start between 1890 and 1968. And during this time, thousands of African Americans were driven out of certain towns across the United States. Or steps were taken to forbid them from ever living in certain towns to begin with. Well, let me do my eyebrows real quick. Let me do my eyebrows. And like I said, in these towns there were, or just before these towns, in these towns, whatever, at the city limits there were signs posted that, like I told you before, that said N-word, don't let the sun go down on you, in this, and then it said insert town name. And that's how you knew it was a sundown town, a gray town, or whatever. It was basically just another reason to kill black people. I mean, let's be honest. And such a town like this was, or is, Alex, or was, Alex. It's a town in Franklin County, Arkansas. And it had a sound like this around 1970, which wasn't very long ago. My mom was born in 1976, so it really wasn't that long ago. And by 1970, sundown towns were at their peaks. At this time, more than half of the incorporated South excluded African Americans. At this time, more than half of all incorporated communities outside the traditional South excluded African Americans, including more than 100 towns in northwestern 2/3 of Arkansas. I read a lot about Arkansas. Arkansas has a very long history of this, with many, many towns. Like, it's crazy how many stories I found about Arkansas. And honestly, Arkansas is one of those places that I never really think about. And then all of a sudden it's like, I found a ton of information about Arkansas during this. And it's weird because Southern America rarely engaged in this practice, sundown towns. And it's weird because you would think that they would, because the South is known for being just insanely racist. But they rarely engaged in this practice. Like, of course they kept African Americans down any way they could, but they didn't adapt this practice for some reason. Not many of them. Not many places. Some places did, but not as much as northern states or midwestern states. It's just weird because it seems like it would totally be their thing. So I'm going to start spitting out some names of some of these towns. So sundown towns range from smaller towns like Alex, Arkansas, to larger towns like Greene County, Arkansas, Paragould, Springdale, all those places. And there weren't towns like this prior to the Civil War. There were laws in place that excluded African Americans, but this whole practice didn't come until after that. As early as 1843, African Americans were excluded entry into Arkansas. They were denied, free African Americans were denied entry into Arkansas. I mean, and clarify that. If they were free, they couldn't go in there. And by 1859, this was interesting, by 1859, I read that Arkansas required that free black people had to leave the state by January 1st, 1860, or they would be sold back into slavery. But yeah, I found a ton of stories about Arkansas and how people were lynched, beaten, threatened, during this time. And I really didn't know. I had no idea Arkansas was that bad, but apparently it was. But yeah, it's, like I said, it was one of those places I never really thought about. Yeah. So let's go to some other areas. In 1912, Georgia. In 1912, an entire black population in Georgia was driven out of a town. And this town was Forsyth County. And an entire population of 1,100 black people were driven out of Forsyth County in Georgia. And it was called a racial cleansing. That's what they called it. Now, this racial cleansing was a response to the alleged rape and beating of a white woman. It was the response to an alleged rape and beating of a white woman by a black man. And the rape and beating of another white woman who ultimately died due to her injuries by another black man, supposedly. A mob attacked and hanged one of the black guys that was accused of this crime. And the other two black teens who were accused of the other crime, they were put on trial. And of course they lost and they were hanged. They were hanged in a public execution following a very short trial. Like, these aren't... Unfortunately, these stories aren't very unique. This seemed to happen a lot. And another one I want to talk about is Anna, Illinois. Illinois had a lot too. Honestly, I read a lot about Illinois too. But Anna, Illinois specifically is pretty popular because it's said that Anna, A-N-N-A, stands for Ain't No N-Words Allowed. It wasn't clear if this is said that this town is named for that, like they did that on purpose, or in some, I don't know, they're trying to say now that it's just an acronym and it was like a joke and people just went with it. But I'm like, they really went with it. It was just a joke. Like, the whole town really just went with it, so I don't think it was just a joke. And this place still exists, of course. So yeah, now they're trying to say, oh, it's just an acronym. And that's not really what it means, not really what it stands for. It's just a joke. But they really went with that joke if it was a joke, which I don't think it was a joke. It seems... At one point they were super proud of it. And now they're trying to back out of it. Like, oh, well, times are changing. I did find a newspaper article from 1903 that did verify that black people were not allowed to live in Anna. In 1916, there's one that claimed that one black guy lived there and he died. And from what I've seen so far, as of now, there's only one black family living there. And if not one, then there's very few. Because I didn't find many. But, yeah. And I also read another article, or another instance of something like this happening. It was in another town in Georgia where a boy, he was a teenager, black boy, teenager, he was working with someone in a roofing company. This was like 1956, I believe. And he went into town looking for his boss because he had a question or he was ready to go home or something. He was looking for his boss. And he went inside of a barber shop looking for him. And the sun was like close to going down. Anyway, when he went in there, he was attacked by a group of white guys. And they held him down, kicking him, punching him and stuff. And they were telling him, yeah, boy, don't you know about sundown towns? Threatening him, saying they were going to lynch him and stuff like that. Somehow he got away. Thankfully he got away, and he managed to run away before they could catch him. So it's just stuff like that. A lot of stuff like that. But I did also find some articles where not everybody went along with this, or not everybody in the town agreed with this. Like, some white people in the town did not agree with this. They did not want to go along with this. But of course, they were threatened by their community, members of their community, that if they didn't go along with this, they would be harmed, their property would be harmed. They were afraid of that. But some people still, you know, they did the right thing. They tried to help black people at that time, which was the right thing, obviously. It's just so crazy to me how people go about and say, oh, it was a different time than when you talk about stuff like this. And I was like, even if it was a different time, you know right from wrong, right? Like, you know you're not supposed to hurt people, right? Doesn't matter if it was a different time, whatever. It doesn't matter what time you grew up in. You should know right from wrong. You're an adult. And as an adult, you should teach your kids right from wrong. So even if that was the climate back then, you had an option to say, no, I'm not going to participate in this. And stand up for yourself and for other people. And I know that's not as easy as it sounds, but still, that was an option. Instead of giving in and being some of the bad people. Some of the deplorables. Which those people were deplorable, who were condoning in this act. And participating in this act. And not even participating, like, even if they were just standing by and watching, they were deplorable. But anyway, some examples of some people who actually stood up, took a stand, actually tried to help. Like this woman I read about in Arkansas again in 1969. There was a choir that came to the town, and one of the members of the choir was black. Anyway, of course, someone wanted to give her a hotel room or anything because she was black. Anyway, this woman let her stay with her overnight in her house. And the woman told about how terrified she was that her house would be blown up in the middle of the night. Thankfully nothing happened, but she was scared that something would happen because she knew that was, of course, that was a very real possibility. And it's so crazy, like, how people got away with this stuff. But I mean, if you have the backing of the country, I guess, basically, then of course they're going to get away with it. And I also read that in Arkansas, sundown towns continued to form well into 1954. So like I said, it wasn't something that was super long ago. So I found some more information after I finished the video, so I'm going to incorporate it here. Anyway, it's about Route 66, which was also called the Mother Road. And it consists of 8 states: Illinois, Missouri, Kansas, Oklahoma, Texas, New Mexico, Arizona, and California. And it's used to connect the urban and rural American areas from Chicago all the way to LA, of course. It crosses 8 states, the 8 that I mentioned, and 3 time zones. It is 2,440 miles and nicknamed the Road of Dreams because during the Dust Bowl and the Great Depression, many people migrated or used it to migrate and escape poverty during those times. And they would travel it looking for a better life. It was one of the few U.S. highways laid out diagonally and was said to be like a shortcut to freedom. But it was basically only meant for white people, a shortcut to freedom for them. In 1930, 44 the 89 counties that lined Route 66 were all white communities, sundown towns, like we were talking about. They had their little signs we talked about posted at the city limits. And Route 66 started in Illinois, a state that already had nearly 150 sundown towns itself. And Route 66 is said to have bore witness to some of the nation's worst acts of racial terrorism ever. In 1906, in Springfield, Missouri, a white mob dragged Horace Duncan and Fred Koger to the town square, hanged them, and burned them that Easter weekend, and while thousands watched. During this time, also, I should mention that lynchings, hangings, all that, they were a form of entertainment for a lot of people. So they were like the posters and stuff, and people would travel for miles around to come watch, like they were going to a show, and it's crazy. But anyway, it was like a form of entertainment for them. And as thousands watched, and their body parts were afterwards, after they were burned and lynched, their body parts were distributed among the crowd as souvenirs. So, and of course, as we talked about last week, the Tulsa Race Massacre of 1921, Tulsa, Oklahoma, was also part of Route 66. And we talked about what happened there last week. Also, along, it said that on Route 66, businesses with 3Ks in the title were code for the Ku Klux Klan. For example, Clean Country Cottages and other businesses like that. So, of course, black motorists had to or tried to avoid sundown towns like Edmond, Oklahoma. Every stop was potential danger or a possible death for them. Lynching was a very real concern when they were traveling through the Ozarks on Route 66, which was really interesting for me to find out because I was actually talking with my family about moving out, travel to the Ozarks, and I found out this information. I didn't know that. Not to say that it's still like that way, but I don't know. So anyway, I learned a lot doing all this. So anyway, a lot of black people traveling by road had to have a plan, a cover story, or even a disguise. A lot of black people, especially ones traveling in really nice cars, traveled with chauffeur hats. So if they were stopped, they could say that they were just a chauffeur and they were driving someone around or going to get someone, because black people who drove nice cars were huge targets for law enforcement and huge targets for harassment by law enforcement. In 1930, a black columnist named George Schuler wrote, "Blacks who drove expensive cars offended white sensibilities, and some blacks kept to older models as to not give the dangerous impression of being above themselves," which is really sad and sounds very familiar. But despite all of the dangers, millions of black people still continue to travel and explore the country, which is amazing that they still had it in them to even want to do that. I would be terrified. And many relied on a travel guide titled The Negro Motorist's Green Book, written by Victor H. Green, who was a black postal worker from Harlem, New York. It was published from 1936 until 1966. In the book were lists of businesses that were black friendly and who were willing to serve black people. So black people tried to look out for each other back then, which was, again, amazing, just like they did in Tulsa. And there were also a bunch of other books like the Green Book that had lists of places that were safe for black people, basically. They had, in the book were a list of barbershops, salons, taverns, gas stations, you name it. And some of the other books, or Black Traveler's Guide books, were the Travel Guide, that was from 1947 to 1963, and Grayson's Guide, the Go-To Guide to Pleasant Motoring, 1953 to 1959. But the Green Book was published for the longest and had the widest readership. The Green Book covered the entire United States, but during its time of publication, Route 66 was, of course, the most popular road in America at the time. So, just a little background story to that. I just wanted to add that because Route 66 is obviously a very famous road, and I didn't know this previously, but I just knew that it has something to do with this because it has such a wide reach. But anyway, that's that on that, and we're going to get back to the main story. All right, bye. So, one of the best and most comprehensive books I found about the Sundown Towns is by James Loewen, and it was written in 2005. And it's called Sundown Towns, A Hidden Dimension of American Racism. Which, I mean, to put it lightly, what it is. In it, he has a database of potential sundown towns to this day. Well, 2005, because that's when it was written. But I've also found sites online that have updated lists of places that are potential sundown towns or that were, and some that still are. And I think you can like submit some place that you think is a possible sundown town or one that is, and they'll verify or not and add it to the list. So some on his list are Broken Arrow, Oklahoma, Cherry Hill, New Jersey, Hershey Park, and there's a ton in California that he mentioned. But yeah, I would say definitely check out his books and other books like his, because like I said, there are so many books and stuff about this. And just do some research and find out more information for yourself. Like I said, I found a lot of information about this and a lot of different stories and about events that have happened and incidents that have happened, but I couldn't fit it all into one video. I think I wrote down, again, like 9 pages of notes. So yeah, I would say definitely find out and do more research for yourself. It is very interesting and informational, and I think is worth everybody knowing about. Everyone should know about this and the history of this. Like I said, these towns there's still some alive and well here, even if they don't have the signs up, and that's evident by the things that are still happening today. Like, just take for instance Ahmaud Arbery, and that happened in Brunswick, Georgia, which isn't very far from where I live. And it's sad, but it's not surprising. It's really not. And there are so many other incidences. I remember the story with the FedEx driver. He was approached by some guy demanding his information. And there's so many other stories like that where FedEx drivers and whoever are just approached by random people off the street who think they have the authority to police black people, or just anyone. Like, who gives you that authority? No one. But yeah, there are still a disturbing amount of people like that who think they have the right to police whoever, namely black people, and the outcome usually isn't very good. But yeah, like I said, there's so much more information out there, so definitely do your own research, find out more information, and share it with whoever you can. Let me know whatever you find, and please don't forget to like and subscribe if you like this video, and stay safe and be kind. And I am glad I did this video. I wanted to do it since that conversation with my friends. I hope you guys have learned something, and share with me any information you find, any further information, and thank you. I will actually list some of the books I found too about the subject in the description box. So yeah, and that is it. Thank you for watching. I hope you guys like this video. let me know. Thank you. Bye. Oh yeah, I almost forgot. I wanted to share a story too. It's not a story really. It's just something that happened when I was younger. My brothers and I were traveling with my grandparents, and we went to either northern part of Florida, or it was still in Georgia, but we went to a theme park. I think it was Carowinds. We used to go there a lot. But anyway, we went to a theme park. And anyway, on our way back, we were traveling back home. And we were with my grandparents, and I think we were in Georgia. I know we were in Georgia because we weren't very far from home. So we were in Georgia somewhere. And we were traveling through this small town, and of course we stopped at the gas station because we had to get gas. Anyway, like my grandparents always did, they gave us some money and told us we could go inside and get some snacks. So me and my eldest brother went inside, and we were getting snacks, and we were just looking around like we always do, looking for snacks, whatever we wanted. Anyway, we go up to the counter, and there's this lady at the counter, and the cashier, of course, and she's just like staring at us. And there's a sheriff there. Well, I don't know if he was a sheriff. He was a cop. And I remember it distinctly because he was wearing like a brown, like a tan uniform. And it was so weird because they were both just staring at us. Like, they didn't say anything. They were just staring at us like, why are you here? What the hell are you doing here? And we were just like, we put our stuff on the counter like we were trying to pay for it. And they didn't say anything. They didn't move. They didn't do anything. They were just staring at us the whole time. Every little move we made, they were just staring at us. And it was so weird. But yeah, they didn't threaten us or anything. They were just staring at us. And it was super weird. Like, she wasn't trying to like ring up our stuff or anything and have us leave. They were just looking at us like, why are you here? It was super weird. It was like, they were both white, of course. They were both white, and my brother and I are not. So yeah. But anyway, and as that whole interaction was going on, it felt like forever, but it was just like maybe a minute or two. And then my grandmother came up, and like, she was outside at first, and then she came inside, and she told us to come on, let's go. And I was like, we were like, wait, we have to pay for our stuff, we didn't get our stuff. And she was like, we're just gonna go to another gas station. And at the time I was super confused. I was like, what is going on? Like, why? Like, the stuff is right here, let's just get it and leave, let's just pay for it and leave. And she was like, I wasn't gonna argue with her. I was just thinking to myself, like, that's so weird, like, why can't we just get our stuff here and leave, like, we're already here. So yeah, she got us in the car, and her attitude, she was not happy. Like, I could tell, like, it was something wrong. Like, she was not happy. It seemed like she was angry or upset. Not sad, but not angry with us. She just seemed kind of angry, which was weird because she wasn't angry before. So we were like, what happened? Now I kind of know what it was. I have no idea if that was a town like the towns I've talked about, but it was very strange. It was like something out of a horror movie almost, like, or out of a movie in general. It was just very weird, and I still remember it even after like 15 years. It was just bizarre. But anyway, we got our stuff. I mean, we didn't get our stuff. We got in the car, and then we left, and we went to another gas station further away, closer to where we lived. And I remember because I started to recognize scenery and stuff, so I was like, okay, we're closer to home now. But yeah, and then my grandparents let us get some stuff at another gas station, even though we were close to home. It was kind of pointless at that point because we were almost home. But they still let us get some stuff, some snacks or whatever, just because of the situation, I guess. But yeah, that's my little story of something that happened when I was a kid. Yeah, that's unfortunate. But if you guys have any stories of your own or any information, like I said, please share it with me and everyone, and that'd be pretty cool. I'll see you guys next time. My dog is acting bizarre and I need to take care of this. Yeah. Okay. That's it. Thanks. Bye.